This podcast may contain content that is graphic and disturbing in nature. Listener discretion is advised. For most of her life, this woman was a well-liked and respected veterinarian, mother, and member of society. That all changed, however, when she met a new man who would convince her that a sinister act was the solution to all of her problems. This is the Valerie McDaniel story. Hey, Amy.
Hello, you're happy today.
No, I'm not. You know what's funny? I'm actually sad.
Why?
Because you're leaving.
Oh,
After this
your
episode.
dog's slowly killing me.
I know. We just said it on the last, I think the last time we were recording. But I really am sad because you've been here for 2 days, and selfishly, I just have so much fun when you're here.
Oh, I have fun too. I'm sorry that I can't breathe, though.
I know. I'm sorry. I can't either, but
Yeah, that's okay.
I'll miss you when you're gone.
Oh,
just so
I'll
you
come
know.
back.
I know.
Okay.
And we'll talk 10 times a day, so it'll be okay.
Yes.
Before we get to today's episode, Amy, we have some supporters we'd like to thank. So a big thank you to Natalie Newmeyer, Erin from Chicago, which I know is one of your favorite places. And who else do we have, Amy?
We have two Amy's.
Get out.
Yes, we do. We have Amy with an I, and you know I always wanted to spell my name like that. And then we have Amy from Orlando who listens with her daughter, Kat.
Wow, I love the parent. We get a lot of family listening. We're very lucky.
Yes.
That's very cool. Thank you so much to those who support us. We can't tell you how grateful we are and how much it helps us keep bringing you great content on the show. And if you're interested in ad-free episodes, an extra episode a month, book clubs, classes, happy hours, and more, visit us at patreon.com/womenincrime. Amy, do you know the story that I'm bringing you today? Have you heard of Valerie McDaniel?
Never have, no.
I knew you wouldn't. Why don't I introduce you to Valerie? Valerie Busick McDaniel was born on January 12th, 1969, and she was raised in a well-off and respected family in Houston, Texas. Valerie was highly intelligent, well-liked. She was described as effervescent and also had a very strong work ethic. In school, her nickname was Angel Student. I mean, I think that says it all.
Mm-hmm.
In 1987, Valerie graduated as valedictorian from Episcopal High School after she attended University of St. Thomas in Houston for her undergraduate degree. Then, in 1997, Valerie received her doctorate in veterinary medicine from Texas A&M University. At that same university, she met Marion, often referred to as Mac, just so you know going forward, McDaniel III, who she would later marry on August 16th, 1997. In 2000, just a few years later, Valerie fulfilled what you might say is her occupational dream by establishing her own successful practice known as the Montrose Veterinary Clinic. And that was in her hometown, and her husband, Mac, was working as the office manager. So, she met Mac, they got married, she opens her own practice. By all accounts, things are looking good. People described Valerie as remarkably intelligent, reliable, caring, an outstanding veterinarian. From the peers of, her to, the graduating high school class, people 35 years before, everybody said nice things about Valerie. Nobody had a negative thing to say throughout the entire course of her life, aside from one friend who expressed that Valerie's one downfall was bad taste in men. From the outside, it appeared that Valerie and Mac were living a great lifestyle, an enviable one, right? They lived in this high-rise condominium in River Oaks, or that was kind of referred to as the Beverly Hills of Houston. The couple owned several luxury vehicles. They had a beach house on Tiki Island where Valerie would entertain her friends on the weekends, usually without Mac. Unable to conceive children biologically, in 2008, the couple adopted a 2-day-old daughter and brought her home. Throughout the course of their marriage, Valerie's friends and others described her being very upset, though, often due to Mac's abrasive language, cheating on her, and his frequent absences. So remember I said she entertained a lot? Mm-hmm. Mac was almost never there. It didn't seem that he was interested in participating. Although those close to Valerie never described her marriage to Mac as being good, it took Valerie a long time to really learn the extent of Mac's duplicitous behavior. What happened was one day, someone Mac had an affair with, who was a complete stranger to Valerie, contacted Valerie directly, called her to reveal the affair. And the woman also provided an entire list of women Mac had slept with over the years, including, very devastatingly, one of Valerie's closest friends. Valerie, however, did not leave Mac. She was loyal and she forgave her husband, even insisting that her friends, not speak badly about Mac. After 17 years of marriage, though, Valerie had had enough. She discovered that Mac engaged in intimate activity with another woman inside the house while she was there. Essentially, she heard them, Amy.
Oh.
I don't know who the person was. I don't know if it was, a friend of a friend. I don't know who would do this kind of thing in someone's house with the person there. But Valerie described feeling pure rage, and she said that was the first time she said the word divorce out loud, and she knew that she was going to have to divorce Mac. And in February 2015, she filed a divorce petition and requested full custody of their 8-year-old daughter. So if you look at the divorce petition, Valerie outlined, a series of infidelities as well as fiscally irresponsible and criminal behavior allegedly perpetrated by Mac, including what she said was committing fraud on the estate. I looked at the petition and I didn't see the specifics of the fraud per se, but I did see like infidelities and other, kind of a litany of complaints. I think another indicator regarding the dynamic of their relationship at this point, in her petition, it went on to formally request that Mac be, quote, restrained from threatening or communicating with her in a vulgar, profane, obscene, or indecent language or in a coarse or offensive manner. Very specific. So apparently, as I had said earlier, this was a problem. Valerie had said that he was very abrasive and, he kind of scared her, I think, the way he spoke to her. Unsurprisingly, Mac and Valerie's divorce was neither simple nor amicable. The bitterly disputed divorce was not finalized until August 2016, with Valerie essentially retaining the primary Houston property and the veterinary clinic, while Mac was awarded the beach house and $1.2 million in compensation. To compensate him, too, Valerie had to take out a very sizable loan, which was, upsetting to her. Golda Jacob, Valerie's next door neighbor, was the attorney who assisted her with, this challenging divorce. And Mrs. Jacob's 39-year-old failed surgeon's son, Leon Jacob, was also living with her at the time. And he basically wasted no time working himself into Valerie's life after meeting her, despite the fact that Valerie reported initial distaste for him. She did not like that. She found him very offensive at first. But that changed quickly, and she and Leon began a whirlwind romance. And according to all who knew Valerie, Leon became a very powerful influence over her, turning this, one-time respected woman into a criminal in just a few months' time. But who was Leon Jacob? He was born in Texas into a wealthy family with his father employed as a surgeon and his mother as an attorney, as I just told you. He was the eldest of 2 sons and attended highly prestigious boarding schools, receiving an excellent education as a child. However, tragedy struck at the age of 13 when his father passed away. But Leon pushed forward, eventually going into medicine, following in his father's footsteps. In 2001, Leon married Annie Morrison, an attorney for a pharmaceutical business, and eventually the mother of his 2 sons. In March 2021, a few months after the couple discovered that they were expecting a second child, Leon was terminated from his residency. And Annie further discovered that Leon was having an extramarital relationship with a mutual friend. Isn't this surprising in this story that people's friends?
Yes.
It's always sad when you learn about an affair, but to find out that it's like a friend, the betrayal there is just it's a double betrayal, I guess. Meanwhile, with Leon's most recent termination, Annie was the sole employed spouse in their relationship for nearly the entirety of her second pregnancy. And she was commuting 90 minutes a day, working full time. And Leon reportedly did not work at this time. And he took care of their first child, but not really. She still had a higher daycare. She didn't trust him. So, they were basically, both the children were in daycare most of the time. And Annie reported that Leon refused to do anything. He wasn't helping with housework. He wasn't really helping with child rearing. And other people or other partners that Leon had would attest to similar behavior. Furthermore, Leon physically assaulted his wife throughout their marriage and her second pregnancy, even attempting to attack her abdomen during her 3rd trimester as she attempted to protect her heavily pregnant belly at the time. Specifically, on December 6, 2012, the police department was dispatched to Leon's home after he stole Annie's keys, refused to return them, and held a razor to her throat, threatening to kill her. I mean, this is, very violent. According to the police reports, Leon committed the offense of kidnapping by barricading Annie and their minor child in a bedroom and informing Annie that the only way that she would leave the room was in a body bag. And that's verbatim on that one.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is terrifying. In 2013, Annie divorced Leon after 12 years of marriage, citing extreme mental cruelty. It's interesting because, yes, I didn't see further, but I would think extreme physical abuse would have been also that. In Pennsylvania, it was about August 2013, Leon was served with a protection order concerning his harassment of Annie. He first violated it in September 2013. He would go on to commit various acts of harassment, trespass. He violated the protection order several times. He made terroristic threats against both Annie and her mother. What I read was that there was a minimum of 10 times between September and April at which the state of Illinois had to intervene. But nothing was really done. He wasn't really punished. So we're seeing,
Yep.
I think you can see what's happening here. Then in 2014, Leon met 33-year-old Meghan Varga while she was working in a hotel in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The two quickly began dating, and she moved with him to his hometown of Houston. Much like Annie, Meghan was the only employed partner, and one day in January 2017, after a full workday, she came home and found out that the dog that she and Leon shared had basically not been attended to, hadn't been walked, maybe there was an accident. And she said that, she was feeling the weight of being the sole breadwinner and the homemaker and doing everything. And when she told Leon how she felt, he exploded in a fit of rage and physically attacked her. Overall, their relationship had lasted about 3 years until this assault, at which point she ended the relationship, filed assault charges, and obtained a protective order against Leon for stalking. And right after their relationship ended, Leon began a new one with Valerie McDaniel, who likely did not know the full extent of Leon's personal history and his career and legal problems. I had to tell you, this is a lot of information about him, but it's totally relevant and really super interesting. I could not believe the extent of what was going on with this person. See, Leon didn't have the grades to be accepted into medical programs within the continental United States, and instead he enrolled in an offshore medical school in the Caribbean island of Grenada. Although he managed to graduate in 2005, his performance as a student was so poor that he was thrown out of 2 training programs during medical school. And I got to tell you, his attempted medical career, and I really mean attempted, would result in an even greater string of failures, with him being terminated from 7 surgical residencies nationwide, and he failed to obtain his medical license.
Can you imagine getting surgery from a doctor like that eventually?
No. As a matter of fact, when I was talking about it with James, he said, who does it remind you of?
Dr. Death?
Yeah, Christopher Dunch. And you're going to see how so, too. In July 2005, Leon was not offered a second residency year at St. Vincent's due to being, quote, functionally unreliable and, quote, having an inability to focus and distracting behavior. That same day, he scored the 21st percentile on AppSite score. Have you ever heard of that?
Nope.
It's an assessment which measures residents' progress in applied science and the treatment of clinical complications following surgical procedures. So it's very specific, but he did not do well. In the following year, he received a performance review from another doctor, which included him also being frequently inappropriate with patients and family members. Yeah, this guy is not amassing a good record. His behavior was noted as bizarre, alarming. A number of his fellow residents in these programs at various times reported Leon as posing a definite threat, a potential threat to patients. And so the hospital just declined to extend his contract. And on January 23rd, 2009, Leon was notified by the University of Texas Health Science Center that his residency would not be renewed. But get this, they said there's a lot of information. They basically said that he had a false sense of grandiosity that jeopardized his decision-making, lack of insight, lack of professionalism, a history of lying.
Is this a sociopath?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. So I said there's a lot of information, but it's all really relevant to establishing him. I mean, it goes on and on to say he lied about morning rounds. He was tardy, argumentative, confrontational. He propositioned the chief resident to make out in a hall. I'm not even kidding you. Oh, and another thing, because he helped with, students as well. Apparently, reportedly, he discussed the size of his penis with his students. So, I mean, these behaviors are bizarre, alarming, threatening, criminal. So on the same day he was terminated from that position, he harassed a female physician at the institution by calling her repeatedly and demanding that she retract a statement that she had issued against him. The harassment escalated to such a level that the physician was forced to disclose it to her superior. And on February 25th, 2011, Leon was forcibly escorted from the grounds of Northside Medical Center in Ohio and warned not to return for 3 days due to anger management issues and threats made against supervisors. This is shocking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I found it shocking. I'm seeing such an escalation too, but I'm like, he's dismissed, but it's like he keeps finding other places.
Yeah.
However, this hospital, which was another hospital because we know he was terminated, this is Northside, he was dismissed from this residency as well. Remember, this is one of, I think I told you, 7 residencies.
Why would he be allowed to at some point? Aren't you just like...
So I don't know enough about this field. I'm sure we'll get people to write in, but I don't think so. I think you can keep going, but I'm surprised that when they would look at the list, it's kind of like being terminated from teaching positions. Like if you're terminated from so many. He was terminated from this position for several reasons. One of them was arguing with trauma surgeons in the operating room, showing disrespect to peers, openly using profanities. They said that his basic science background was poor. He did even worse on that test. Remember that earlier test where he scored in the 21st percentile? On this one, he scored in the 7th percentile. And then on April 1st, 2011, Leon again trespassed against Northside Medical Hospital and threatened another doctor. The list just keeps going on and on. In 2012, while failing another residency in Ohio, he was charged with burglarizing the home of the head of the residency program from which he was dismissed.
So we're spending a lot of time on him. I'm assuming that his behavior somehow influence...
Yeah. And I know, like I said, this is a lot about him, but I think that it's very clear. And I'm almost at the end of, his behavior. But okay, and we're almost at the end, but a few more things. In 2014, Leon was convicted of driving under the influence. In September 2014, he was charged with cyberstalking and harassing his ex-wife, Annie. He was sentenced to 11-month jail sentence, but ultimately he just wound up serving a term of probation for this. This is really the first time he's been punished, by the way.
And that's barely a punishment compared to what it should be.
Exactly. He didn't, by the way, that burglary that he committed, it was downgraded to trespassing, for which he received a slap on the wrist. He was fired again in August 2015 from his position at Methodist Hospital in Harris County, Texas, for, let's say, false claims, lying. He mislabeled a donor organ and had anger management problems. I mean, the list goes on. In 2016, he filed for bankruptcy. Overall, between 2009 and 2017, Leon's criminality, let's say, went over 4 states with a minimum of 8 counts of assault on family member, 13 counts of harassment, 4 counts of terroristic threats, burglary, kidnapping, aggravated assault, violation of protection orders, theft, driving under the influence.
And what year did he start dating Valerie? It's like right in the middle of all that, or after?
2016.
Okay, so that was after all this. So he quieted down for a little before he met her?
No, he didn't. He never quieted down.
No.
There was a consistent all the way up
Did
until
she know about this?
So that's why I said before, Valerie likely didn't know the extent. She did know about some of it.
Okay.
And while she did know about it also, you have to understand that he was also a skilled manipulator who, basically engaged Valerie in this whirlwind romance. He was younger. He, reportedly adored her. I think she felt really good for the attention. And I think that Leon was probably able to keep himself in check for a short period of time because, his previous girlfriend, Meghan, had reported, it wasn't right away that this happened.
It never is.
No, that's very true. But that short period of time for Valerie and Leon would be 2 months. So Leon, who Mac knew, so Valerie's ex-husband, had, apparently done a little bit of homework and found out about Leon's lengthy history. He's a career criminal, wouldn't you say, Amy? We can talk about this at the end. But yeah, basically kind of moved in with Valerie. And Mac had found out, and he...
And who has the child? Valerie has the child?
They have shared custody of the child. And Mac was not happy about it. He knew about the countless charges. He did not want Valerie to be dating her, but he certainly didn't want Leon to be living around his daughter half the time. And, Valerie's friends had minimal insight into her mindset as well during this short time period because Leon kind of isolated Valerie socially while taking control over her life, which it seemed he was very domineering and controlling. So apparently he would answer her phone calls, which is, obviously very, I would say, controlling and abusive behavior. Her journal entries, which we will get to and which we got later on, reflect basically, as I said before, a woman infatuated with her new younger boyfriend. And, basically she was reveling in the attention that she felt like she didn't get from her husband for so many years. Meanwhile, as Leon's most recent charges related to the stalking of his ex-girlfriend Meghan, he became convinced that it was this felony stalking charge that was preventing him from achieving his goal of becoming a distinguished surgeon. And if he believed if these charges were dropped, that would clear the path. And that was the real problem. It wasn't that, he was acknowledging all his terrible decisions or that he failed all these scores. He just believed, he became hyper-focused on this idea that it was the charges brought by Meghan. And Valerie was also, basically stressed out because Mac, was objecting to Valerie having Leon around, and she wasn't sure if Mac was going to take action about it. At some point, the two became convinced that they had to, I would say Leon first became convinced that he had to deal with this problem of Meghan. And I think that Leon started to convince Valerie that she also had to get rid of Mac because he was the problem and he was going to destroy their family. So Meghan was going to destroy his career and Mac was going to destroy his family. Logically, what would Leon do? Well, he asked a recent cellmate of his, Motaz Zak Azay, a.k.a. Taz, so we'll refer to him as Taz, if he would kidnap his ex-girlfriend Meghan and convince her not to testify against him. Not kill her, but kidnap her and somehow pressure her. Taz took $10,000 that Leon gave him, but he didn't kidnap or harm Meghan. And then, angered because Taz was avoiding him, Leon went furiously into the bail bond office where he and Taz had both received their bond and demanded from someone he didn't know, a worker there, where he could find Taz. And he told this stranger, Felix, that basically about the plan that he had to have Taz kidnap his girlfriend. He tells a complete stranger this. Felix, in turn, turns around and contacts law enforcement. And basically, the ruse begins to capture Leon and see what's going on here. They got Taz to cooperate, and then enter Javier Duran. He's an undercover officer who was introduced to Valerie and Leon as a hitman by Taz.
Oh,
so this is how they got Taz. And Taz is like, I can't do it, but I have a hitman here.
Yeah.
They're all cooperating. And this undercover officer began recording conversations of Valerie and Leon soliciting the kidnapping of Meghan and a hit on Mac.
Oh, boy.
They were soliciting someone to kill Mac.
And the father of her child.
Yeah. And how did they arrange these, the hit on their ex-spouses and the kidnapping? Well, that was arranged over a meal at the Olive Garden.
Oh, endless bread baskets.
Yes,
Perfect.
Exactly. It's actually on the quotes here I have when you hear your family, Okay, so they have this meeting with Valerie, Leon, Taz, and the undercover officer.
You never know what people at the next table are talking about,
I mean, when you're thinking that, right? They believed the undercover officer was a hitman. And Leon discussed methods of homicide, but essentially he wanted Meghan kidnapped, but said, if she doesn't cooperate, then you can kill her. For Leon, this was seemingly logical. And at some point, the detective began pressing Valerie about Mac because Leon had discussed the possibility of also taking out Mac, but he had not discussed this with Valerie directly. So, he wasn't sure if Valerie was serious about this. But over the course of this 2-hour lunch, it came out that Valerie did, in fact, agree or became more comfortable discussing Mac's elimination. This is what she said. Let's say if something were to happen, what would it be? Would it be like a car wreck? Or, to which the detective responded, it could be a car wreck. It could be a robbery gone wrong. So the detective later said, and it became clear that she agreed to have Mac killed and was under the belief that he would be carjacked and a bullet would be put in his head. And by the end of lunch, she agreed to this, seeming like she went in seeming a little hesitant, but by the end, she basically gave him a green light. And this is exactly what she said. He said point blank to her, you need to give me the go ahead. Do you want to do that? And she said, what other option do I have? He's going to take my daughter. So, okay. After that meal, the plan was set in motion. And to support the ruse, the police took realistic photographs of both Mac and Meghan. So they went to Mac, they went to Meghan.
And told them what was going on.
Told them about the plot. They wanted to make sure they're safe. And, they were shocked, but they asked them to cooperate. They said, we want to, make it look like a fake kidnapping and a fake death.
Oh, did they actually stage?
Yes.
That's crazy. I've heard that before.
Yes. So they took a picture of Mac. He slumped over his car. You could see blood everywhere. Seemingly looked like he took a bullet. He looks like he's dead.
Wow.
And they took a picture of Meghan alive, but in like total distress. She's bound and gagged.
She's a good actress. I just looked up the pictures.
It was very good, yes. But you know what was sad for her? They said that during the time when she was doing that, she totally broke down and started crying.
How could you not? I mean,
I
that's
don't
so
know.
scary.
I don't know how that would happen, honestly.
These pictures are insane.
Yeah, no, they definitely are insane. But okay, so they take the pictures. The hitman calls Valerie Mack to let him know that it's done. And do they want to see pictures? They did not want to see the pictures, just so you know.
Who didn't?
Neither of them wanted to see the pictures, so they kind of staged the pictures for nothing in the end. But I mean, it was supposed to be proof.
Yeah.
But so what followed after that was a police notification. So they wanted to see what would happen. They went to Valerie's house. They told her about Mac, and she sat quietly with her head in her hands. This is all on body cam footage, by the way. Everyone could see this. And then Leon came out acting surprised at this news about Mac, but then seemingly attempting to establish an alibi, letting the police know that they were home all day with Valerie and Mac's daughter, right away. But Valerie and Leon were in for one big surprise because the police let the two know that they were being arrested for solicitation of murder. And the pair were handcuffed, much to their shock. But the bigger surprise came when police opened the front door and Mac was standing there.
Oh, boy.
Very much alive, waiting to take his daughter home with him.
Good.
Right? Valerie and Leon, you can see they kissed each other goodbye and the pair were taken away. Following the arrest, Valerie's license, her veterinarian license, was suspended. Mm-hmm. Given her lack of criminal history, though, Valerie was actually allowed to await her court date at home, posting $50,000 bond.
She was on house arrest?
Yeah, she was. Leon was not afforded the same option because he obviously had
the history,
yeah, so he was held without bail. For the next 2 weeks before Valerie's court date, she spent time with her best friends and colleagues, but she was also making journals and recordings to her loved ones because on March 27th, 2017, one day prior to her appearance in court, where she thought she was definitely going to lose custody of her daughter, by the way, Valerie McDaniel climbed over her balcony and jumped 7 stories to her death.
Oh, boy.
I know. She left a very lengthy but cogent suicide note, hours of confessions, she was trying to organize her thoughts and leave people with, more insight and I think maybe give them some closure. Just so you know, of note, she never spoke ill of Leon. She didn't blame him. In fact, she said she still loved him. She said the plan to kill Mac was a gradual and slow process, that she never had any sudden realization. The idea was kind of planted and then grew daily. But she didn't mince words because she referred to her ex-husband as a psychopath. She said that he was basically a horrible person and had, done so many things over so many years to her. So, unfortunately, though, a lot of the majority I looked at of the recordings were unpublished and have never been heard, which made me curious. But ultimately, Valerie McDaniel's, it was the culmination. The prosecutors believed and others believed it was a culmination of these events, financial insecurity, the arrest, loss of her daughter, that culminated into her suicide. It was too many of these stressors. So I think maybe you could already think about theories that are going to explain Valerie's behavior. All right, so what happened with Leon? Not surprisingly, Leon opted to go to trial. During the trial, he predictably turned on Valerie.
So his defense was that it was all her.
She's the mastermind.
Of course.
That was his defense.
Easy to do that now.
Very easy to do that now. Going against the advice of counsel and testifying on the stand.
Oh, boy.
The prosecution admitted to having, quote, done backflips at this disastrous development. I mean,
I'm not surprised because he's so narcissistic that he probably thought he could do a good job on the stand.
He is, but he also didn't have the intellect or the charm of a Ted Bundy type. So the jury found him largely unlikable, arrogant, combative, lack of remorse. I mean, it was a disaster, basically. He, besmirched Valerie's name, turned himself into a victim. Everything went wrong. And there's also the audio recordings that they had. So, let's put it this way. It took the jury 1 hour to return with a verdict of guilty on both counts of conspiracy to commit murder. And on March 26, 2018, 40-year-old Leon Jacob was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. So the possibility at 70 years old. All right. That was a lot of information. Yeah. So let's talk about theory. I want to talk about Valerie and I want to talk about Leon here because he played such a prominent role. Thoughts on Leon?
I see sociopathic tendencies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's clearly a career criminal, so you could talk about life course theory.
Yeah.
But I think he's a sociopath.
Right. So when we talk about life course theory, there's two types of offenders. So life course persisters and adolescent limited offenders. The adolescent limited offenders will commit small acts that they'll basically age out of because they become old enough and don't need to kind of commit these, defiant acts anymore. But then there's a 5 to 10%. Is it 5 to 10%? Of people who will be life course persisters. And these are your career criminals. Leon was clearly one of them. And usually that does coincide with people being, extremely antisocial. So he's a career criminal, highly narcissistic. I think delusional as well, though.
How so?
He falsely came to believe that eliminating Meghan would be the path to his career grandiosity. He had this false sense of grandiosity where he could not see that his own behavior was the problem here. I also think there's clear evidence of low self-control. He could not seem to, control his compulsions. He had a quick temper, need for quick resolution, short-sightedness, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. I think he fits the bill perfectly.
Okay. So Valerie is a very different story, though, entirely.
It's almost tragic.
It is tragic,
Yeah.
I think, because she had been so completely likable. And really, everyone described her as a wonderful, compassionate human being. And just in 2 months' time, she kind of came under, I would almost say, Leon was almost like a cult leader to her, one of those kind of convincing. She was highly stressed, though. And I think it was these stressors, along with his influence that caused her to make a very bad decision. Would you say maybe that would be general strain theory?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of indications of general strain theory.
Yeah.
But as much as we hate to use that one because it's such a catch-all.
It's not for her. I
No.
really feel that she was otherwise, a healthy person who just faced too many stressors.
She was also clearly vulnerable in her choice in partners.
Yeah.
She had a history, it sounds like, of choosing partners that were abusive.
Yeah, I think so too. Which is not to say that she's not legally culpable for her actions.
No,
but,
of course
we're
not.
just
Yeah.
explaining the behavior.
Yeah.
So I think that had she not met Leon, she never would have committed a crime in her life.
Who knows? Unless she met someone else. It seems like her choice in partner, she may have just met somebody else that had other violent tendencies.
I mean, it's possible,
Yeah.
but I doubt. I mean, she was, a 47-year-old woman who had never committed an act. I just don't think she would have.
Yeah.
And that is the tragedy here.
The tragedy is that there's a little girl without a mom, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think the same thing could be said of Valerie's death. Having, died by suicide. She couldn't healthily cope with these stressors,
Yep.
partially created or, by her own actions. So it is a tragedy all round here.
Yes. I wonder if she felt guilt or just upset that she got caught.
I think she felt both, to be
Yeah.
honest. I think she was fundamentally a decent human being who, made a bad decision. Although, remember, she did say that, Mac was not a good person.
Yeah.
She called him a psychopath. So I don't know if that meant she felt partially justified. I'm not
I don't
sure.
know. You can't go around killing people you don't like, though.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
true. No, you cannot do that. Thank God for, fate intervening and, an undercover officer, because had that not happened, Mac might be dead. Meghan would either be kidnapped
Yeah.
and tortured or dead as well. So fate, there was great fate that stepped in here in this one. All right. Finally, Amy, at the end of the day, did the criminal justice system get it right?
Yes. So Leon is eligible for parole at the age of 70.
That's correct. Parole eligible, which
Parole
we know
eligible.
doesn't mean
I'm
he'll be
fine with that.
granted. Okay.
I'm okay with that. I think the system got it right.
Yeah, I do. And certainly a lighter sentence would not have been appropriate. He does not seem deterrable whatsoever. Hopefully at 70, he will have aged out of crime. And again, that just means he's eligible.
Yeah.
I have a strong suspicion that he is not going to be, well, not that he won't be granted, but that he's going to have some behavioral issues.
I was going to say, he doesn't strike me as someone who's going to go down the rehabilitative path.
Exactly. Very tellingly, Leon's younger brother testified prior to his sentencing that Leon would probably have difficulty complying with any rules of probation if such was provided, maintaining employment or anything like that. This is his own brother saying he couldn't comply. So yeah, I think that the sentence is probably appropriate. And again, the tragedy is the lost lives here and the tragedy for their daughter.
Yep. I think stories like these are almost a warning tale to people, right? That it's important to know who you're in a relationship with.
It certainly is.
And nowadays with social media, with the internet, it's much easier than it used to be. You can find out somebody's background. It sounds like maybe Valerie didn't know the extent to Leon's background. And had she known the extent, maybe she would have walked away from the relationship.
Right. So stories like this are almost a cautionary tale.
Almost, yeah. I'm not saying I blame her entirely, because clearly he had very strong criminal tendencies and he was violent, but I think we need to know who we're in relationships with.
I also think the takeaway here is we talk about cases where women are victims or offenders, right?
Yeah.
In this case, I see Valerie as both.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for following me. I know that was a little bit of a long, complicated journey that we took there. Thank you so much for taking this journey with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Women in Crime. Women in Crime is hosted by Meghan Sachs and Amy Shlosberg. Our producer and editor is James Varga. Music composition is by Desert Media. If you enjoy the show, please remember to subscribe and leave a review. You can also support the show through Patreon, where you can get access to additional ad-free content such as virtual happy hours and an extra full-length episode each month. For more information, visit patreon.com/womenincrime. Sources for today's episode include an episode of American Justice on A&E TV, an episode of Dateline, court documents from State of Texas v. Leon Jacob and his appeal, the Houston Chronicle, the American Veterinary Medical Association, and Oxygen.